No Fyfe, no worries as the Dockers spoil Robert Harvey's first game in charge. The startling Tigers drop off and 3 of Kane's records under threat at the Power. All that and more to come from the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. But Kane Corners, we start tonight at the MCG. The Demons 12-2. Christian Petrarca had a big say on the outcome of this one.
He was the class act that sort of turned it a little bit in their favour in the third quarter. I thought Essendon's effort was terrific. This was the class, though. The differential in the two teams was the way that the ball was used. Both are really strong defensively. Both teams had a real dip tonight, but just the ability for Melbourne to finish tonight and cement themselves 2 games clear on top of the ladder with that week off. They looked well organised, really strong defensively. It was a typical Melbourne 2021 performance tonight.
The game was crying out for a big moment. Christian Petrarca, 9 disposals and 2 goals in that third quarter. Swung the momentum. As for the Essendon ball use, they probably left a little bit to be desired going forward, Kane. What is the one thing you don't want to be doing against Melbourne?
You don't want to bomb it there because these two, Lever and May, it's been the story all year. That's the worst spot you can kick the footy against Melbourne. So in their 2 losses against the Western Bulldogs and Collingwood, they have been able to render May and Lever ineffective by changing the angle short, using their man, lowering the eyes going inside 50. There was none of that. They had 18 intercepts tonight. And once again, they've been the 2 best combinations defensively behind the ball, and they're so important to Melbourne. But unfortunately, as I said, Essendon's effort was there tonight. Their ball use wasn't.
There's a couple here late, so this is the last quarter. Essendon starting to press. Cale Hooker actually kicked them within 2 goals late in the game, but Essendon continued to bomb the ball and actually wasted it going forward. And they could have, if they took their opportunities, put a bit more scoreboard pressure on.
Once again, it's the same old story. Don't kick it there, Waterman. That's the worst spot you can kick it. If you need to, kick a mongrel punt, kick it along the ground, find grass. It's what teams have started to do to Thomas Stewart at Geelong, and the Cats, who are strong interceptors as well. But Essendon tonight, 12 more turnovers than what Melbourne had. There's the game.
Yep. Essendon probably had a few of those 50-50 calls go against them tonight. One of those was a big moment in the third quarter, a 100-metre penalty, firstly with Archie Perkins left of screen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else he could have done. I thought he did everything right in terms of the letter of the law. He got into position. When the umpire said stand, he stood. Now, Devon Smith, this is a 50. You've got to get out of the area when the 50 there, so the umpire's paid a double 50. It's a 100-metre penalty in a close margins game. It's so costly. So the first one wasn't there. We'll see it again here. What more could he have done? He has to actually stand the mark. So perhaps the AFL will clarify that one was wrong. The stand rule in general, no team's kicked 100 points to this stage already in this round. I'm not sure it's doing what it was designed to do, despite everyone lauding it in the first 4 rounds of the year. It's just messy for the players. It's too difficult for the umpires. I'd love to see that scrapped next year.
Melbourne haven't conceded 100 points for the entirety of their season. Their back line is flying. Their midfield at the top of their game. You just got to query, though, on their attacking firepower. Take us through some of these numbers and whether they can stand up for the remainder of the season when challenged.
So there's the leading goal scorers, and it's a nice mix. They're not heavily relying on any one individual, but they don't have the 2 power forwards that some of the other teams do. And if you're playing against Melbourne in a big final, are any of those names on the screen there besides Christian Petrarca going to really worry you? And he spends probably 70% of his time in the midfield. I would say no. I think Fritsch and McDonald, you put a good defender on them, they're going to struggle in a final. So can Melbourne, as good as they have been defensively, can they kick you a winning score in a big, tight, hard-fought final?
Wiedemann or Brown, who comes back in next?
I like Ben Brown, but they're confused. I think this is probably the mix that they'll go with. It worked tonight. Jackson is a point of difference. He's not a big goal scorer. He had some opportunities tonight and made a couple of errors in front of goal. So I think this is the mix now with 8 or so rounds to go that they'll go with, unless there's an injury. Brown and Wiedemann might have to sit in the VFL.
All right, across to Adelaide next. The Power into top 4 spot now, taking Geelong's position. They led by 3 goals at 3-quarter time before Buddy Franklin kicked 3 goals in a row.
Hardly touched it until this point, then he just went bang. This is unbelievable for a 34-year-old. Look at the effort, look at the rundown tackle. The captain, Port Adelaide Jonas, had no idea he was there. He played angry tonight. You can see the reaction there from Ken Hinkley. All the momentum was with Sydney. This one's a walk-in goal with no pressure whatsoever, and you think Sydney hit the front with 5:49 to go, and they're just going to waltz through and have a famous victory. Mays is the sub there. He comes on and kicks that one to send Port Adelaide back into the lead. And then this was Alia's first mark of the game up against Franklin. He'll remember that one against his old side. He told him about it after, sent the ball back in, and this is the result. The big ruckman, an unlikely hero, Scott Lycett, kicks the sealer.
Buddy Franklin now 27 goals away from the 1,000. Is he going to get there? So he's moved past Jack Titus today into 6th position of all-time AFL, VFL goal kickers.
Oh, get there. It's just whether...
This year?
Don't think he'll get there this year, but he's going to get there early next year. But he's still so important to them. As I said, he was a spark. He played angry. There was some aggression there. Got reported, which we'll get to. So it was a typical sort of Buddy Franklin eventful night.
And a really important win for the Power when challenged. Their second win against the current top 8 as it stands. Our Saturday star is Travis Boak, Kane. He is now even with you for most wins as a Power player. He's about to go past your game's record and needs 3 more disposals to pass your all-time record at the Power.
Anything else?
That's it. The 3.
Well, he was held to 7 disposals by Hewitt to half-time. This is his third quarter. He's had 13. He's kicked a big goal there just to put Port Adelaide 10 points in front. The thing with Boakey, as we know, he's been tagged throughout his career. He never, ever gives up. And I'm not sure most midfielders can say that, particularly if it's the early stages in their career where they're getting tagged. He's never, ever given in, and he used his aerobic ability just to will himself into this contest. He had a big, really important disposal late in the game that led to that Mays goal. He gathered the ball cleanly in the middle, used composure, hit up Williams in his first game, who sent it inside, and Mays kicked the goal. So he was huge, ended up with 29 after having 7 at half-time. He's a phenomenal player.
And remarkable what he's doing with that midfield depth being challenged at times this season. He continues to stand up alongside Ollie Wines. Charlie Dixon, he's a massive say, going to have a massive say in what the Power do for the remainder of this season. He's had ankle troubles in the past. This caught your eye.
I was stunned to see this. So this is late in the third quarter. He gets looked to be a foot injury or a heel injury. He went off and spent the last 6 minutes of that third quarter. The boot's off there. You can see the pain. And because Laddams was dropped, Lysett was having a rest. They put him into the centre bounce, and this is what happened. Now, this is your prized player. You cannot win the premiership without Charlie Dixon, and with a sore foot, he's been put into the centre bounce, and this is the result. Now, he played out the game. It appears as though he's escaped any serious injury, but I don't want to see Charlie Dixon in the centre bounce ever again for the remainder of the year.
I know Lear had to play on
You
Franklin.
can play a Lear, you can play Marshall. You don't put your number one asset, who was having a big night and was already sore, back into the centre bounce. It's one of the most perplexing moves I've seen this year. Now, maybe it was done a player's call before the coaches could halt it and say, no, things move pretty fast. But you would hope Charlie Dixon's not put in that predicament again for the rest of the year.
Buddy Franklin was put on report, Kane. Probably not much in this, more likely a fine, but he did go in the book.
Yeah, as we said, it was an eventful night. Nothing to see there. More often than not, these match day reports are thrown out pretty quickly. I'd suspect that will be the case, but we know all players have got to use some caution when the opposition have got their head over the footy.
Similar one a couple of weeks ago, Buddy on Nick Newman at the SCG. He did get off and was cleared of that one, so I think Buddy will be able to play next week. 27 goals to get to the 1,000 if he can do it this season. Our AAMI clangers, Kane, up to the Gabba to start with on Thursday night. These are all 3 in a row, so contagious clangers.
3 in a row. 3 out of bounds on the full. These are AFL footballers under no pressure, kicking the ball straight out of bounds. This is not. We haven't mashed this together. We haven't edited this. This is 3 out on the fulls in a row. Charlie Cameron's the worst kick he's done all year. So something was in the air at the Gabba, and Brett Ratton had a bit of trouble with the mask, like we all often do.
He's had 18 months to work it out, Rats. He's still having a little bit of trouble, but they got the win, so he's the one smiling. How about these people who chose this at Adelaide today?
Adelaide Oval, roof climb's magnificent. It was a bit wet, which is unusual for Adelaide. It doesn't usually rain in Adelaide. And Dane Rampy had a bit of trouble in the conditions as well. Simple, uncontested mark that went over the boundary line. The Port fans told him all about it.
It's bad enough getting run down by Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody. Tom McDonald got ducked for his troubles as well, so that's he got the 4 points tonight, so he gets that for his troubles. This is from Christian Petrarca, just letting the Essendon fans know about it when he kicked a crucial goal third term.
Yeah, he loved it as he's having a shot for goal. They're giving him some lip. You can see the Bombers fans not over there. He's complaining to the umpire. He wants it back. There's a wave. There was a little bit of a gesture to say, I couldn't hear you, but as we said, he was terrific once again tonight.
At Marvel Stadium today, Robert Harvey's first game in charge as caretaker at the Pies. They looked like they were going to hit the front early stages this last term, the Pies, but really mature performance from the Dockers. This was a crucial moment, though.
Yeah, this was a turning point. So it was a really ordinary free kick that wasn't there against Braden Maynard, but you've got to be composed and disciplined enough to just hand the ball back. The umpire's not going to change his mind. So that was a big 50-metre penalty to Henry. The Pies came, and I thought Grundy did this a couple of times on Sean Darcy. That matchup was terrific in the ruck. We're going to see that a lot over the next 5 years. He kicked a couple, did Grundy, but It was Bewley that kicked a couple as well. It was a late in for Nat Fyfe, and he kicked his 2 goals was important as well. So terrific win. There's an important goal from Schultz to put Fremantle back in front, but they're in touch with the 8, and I've been wrapped with the way that they play their footy this year. This is an important win away from home, which you don't see too often.
Nat Fyfe laid out with that shoulder injury. They say he's going to be right to play Carlton next week. Matt Taberner subbed out early with the knee injury. Then Brett Bewley, this man, comes in, was playing VFL a couple of seasons ago, comes in and kicks 2 really important goals late to get the win for the Dockers. They are now even with Richmond in 8th position. This is Robert Harvey post-game, his first press conference as a Collingwood coach. This is what he had to say.
It's not going to be perfect first week, and well, I see this as that 9-week project, and we can give them some clarity with that going forward, hopefully, and we can see some. We still scored 79 points, and ideally we keep them to a few less, and just keep showing the right ways to do that. I thought individuals showed some stuff and showed some of their strengths coming through, so get some real enjoyment out of these last 8 weeks.
Robert Harvey said he's not going to use the next 8 weeks as a coaching pitch. Potentially, this might help him further his chances at other clubs.
Yeah, tough period, isn't it, for him and the Collingwood players. Have got some star players out. Maybe some will be pushed in for surgery. Not a lot to play for, but I thought the way they went about it was reasonably impressive, and they showed a bit more attacking flair than what they had through parts of this year.
They did get bogged down at times, which cost them in the end. This was a fascinating moment late, Kane. Luke Ryan copped one to the face flush from Brodie Mychek. He did come off momentarily, but wasn't put through a concussion process.
Yeah, he's in all sorts of trouble here. We'll get another look at it. That's a boot straight to the jaw, and he looked as though he had been concussed and lost consciousness for at least a brief moment. Now, the trainers came out, they did the right thing and got him off, but there didn't appear to be a concussion test where the player takes the full 20 minutes and goes through the process. He came back on pretty quickly and took it into set mark, so he didn't look too affected, but wonder whether the AFL will just ask the question as to why he wasn't put through the required protocol.
Yeah, important player for the Dockers. Back to Friday night, Richmond against St Kilda. Kane, the Tigers' lowest score since 1961. And it's been Richmond smashing St Kilda in their last 2 games from clearances, but the Saints turned the tide on Friday.
Yeah, look at to keep them to 2 goals. So I think there's enough warning signs now that we can put a line through Richmond for genuine premiership contenders. I think the body of work there now is to say that they're not going to win the premiership this year. I think we can say that, and beaten comprehensively by the Saints, who were so dominant out of stoppage. You kicked 5 goals out of stoppage. Dunstan was enormous, and Richmond traditionally don't worry too much about clearance numbers, but when it hurts you like this in dangerous spots like that and they're beaten up inside, then it's a real concern. But uncharacteristics, errors again in their back half, Richmond, and they looked a shell of themselves, and their record at the MCG this year we'll get to is concerning.
Yeah, these are the numbers right now. They've been almost unbeatable at the MCG, 3-4 now at the home of footy this season.
And losses you can see there to a couple of, St Kilda are a lower side, Sydney in the bottom half of the 8, Melbourne and Geelong good sides, but they have just been a walk-up win, pretty much, win 87 to 90% of your games at the MCG. There's not that fear factor there, and perhaps that is part of the Richmond army, the 14,000 there on Friday night. I'm not sure where all the Richmond fans have gone, understand the circumstances that we live in, but perhaps not having the 80,000 there on a Friday night that they usually would has affected them, and their record says that as well.
Another tick for Ryder and Marshall. They're now 11-5 in games with both of those guys playing together. Did the Tigers go too tall? Because they've been trying to play the one ruck. They debuted Samson Ryan and then the 3 talls. Just didn't feel like it worked.
No, it didn't, and you wonder with the debut whether they'd released all the social media stuff and him being told he was getting a game, whether it was too late when you saw the conditions to withdraw him, and perhaps they thought, it's only St Kilda, we'll get away with it. Well, they didn't. Wasn't the difference in the game, mind you. It was just a hungrier St Kilda side, and Richmond were a good 40% off. You're not going to win games against anyone at this level when you apply that effort like the Tigers did on Friday.
Noah Bolter's become a really important player for the Tigers. The initial fears were Kane of an ACL, but the scans today coming back saying a syndesmosis.
Yeah, so it's going to be a 6 to 8 weeker, and his season is in jeopardy. But what a good result, because Damien Hardwick said a suspected ACL after the game, and we'll confirm that. So I'm not sure how the medicos got it that wrong on the night. The ankle's a fair way away from the knee, but anyway, good news for him. He's a really important player for them, but one they're going to miss, and they got a couple of big ones out for them. Yeah,
Nathan Broad as well with his own syndesmosis, so 2 important cogs in that back line. Back to Thursday night, Brisbane into 3rd position on the table. did a number on the Cats, and it really started with their pressure and attack on the footy in the first term.
When they bring this pressure, I think they're the best and most intimidating side in the competition. They did it for a half against Melbourne. They couldn't sustain it for the full 4 quarters, but it was the pressure, and then it was their ball movement off it. So they kicked 4 back half transition goals in the first quarter alone, and we saw the clips of Essendon bombing it inside 50. This is the difference. Look at this kick from McStay. It's low, it's hard, it's flat. There's no way a Geelong player can intercept that because it gets there so quickly. And I thought they identified that really well. They forced the Geelong defenders, including Stewart, to play on really good opponents. He was beaten by Charlie Cameron. And then the ball use, like Rich has been doing this for 12 years, but Zorko's involved again. And then you are out. Like, look how quickly they can transition the ball. That was one of their 4 they kicked in the first quarter from McCarthy. So just thought it was one of the most impressive performances from Brisbane. And they've been in and around there, and we've spoken about them for the last 6 or 7 weeks. That was the performance you needed to see to say, this team can win it.
And they'd had trouble with Geelong in the past. I think they lost only won 3 of their last 24 games against the Cats. These numbers and on this graph here, they really speak to the way Brisbane moved the ball. So if you look to the right of screen there, that's what Geelong could only do in the first half from their scoring options. Brisbane getting much deeper entries and easier shots on goal.
Yeah, and Joe Daniher was a beneficiary of that. 4 goals, first time he's done that since 2019. Charlie Cameron, probably his best game when he brings that body language and effort, and Hipwood kicked a couple as well, including that big bomb you can see from 50 there. So their forward line functioned pretty well. Still some improvement from McStay, just 6 disposals, but all in all, such an even performance from the Brisbane side on Thursday.
Joe Daniher was fined. We want to look at 2 incidents from this game. Firstly, first term, pretty early in the game, he does go over. Bit of a theme on the night for Joe. What did you make of these?
Yeah, well, I'm glad the AFL fined him. He just questioned whether, I know you might have a view whether it's enough, Mitch, $1,000 fine for that. I think it's on to the umpires as well to stop rewarding that. I mean, that's clearly, the umpire's right, that's clearly a dive. You can all see that. If the umpires keep paying that, players are going to keep doing it regardless of the fine.
Well, is it enough to deter Joe Daniher from doing that? So he's on $750,000 about this season. You break that down, that's just over $30,000 a game. He's averaging 15 disposals, so that's $2,000 basically per disposal. If he's just won a free kick there and a goal for his team, what's a $1,000 fine going to be?
You've done the maths.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, I think the embarrassment, and even like Tom Hawkins, a legendary player like Tom Hawkins, coming up to you and say, mate, that's embarrassing. I think that is enough, and the fact we're talking about it here and he's been fined should be enough to get that out of his game.
Just on the Cats' turnovers. So we spoke about Brisbane pressuring the Cats and forcing the Cats into turnovers. Have a look at some of these numbers right now as it sits. The number bottom right of screen, that's 68. That's what Brisbane scored from turnovers. That's the biggest points Geelong have conceded from opposition this season in that department.
And that would be the number that pleases Chris Fagan the most. Like, I've never seen the amount of good Geelong players fumbling the footy. Like, Higgins was fumbling so much in the first half. It's just that pressure. Their defence couldn't clear the area. They were kicking it straight back to Brisbane spares. And then Brisbane were able to not only turn the footy over, but go back and score. So that's modern footy. That's the easiest way to score. Turn it over in your front half. That's what all the good teams are doing. That's what all of the premiership fancies base their game on. And that's the number that would be so pleasing for the Lions.
And only 16 points for the Cats themselves from turnovers from the Lions. Down to Hobart today, more than 6,500 people saw the Roos win their second game of the season. 22-year-old Luke Davies-Uniacke and 23-year-old Cam Zurhaar among their best.
Yeah, when you say their ages, you feel like they've been around a little bit longer. So it was career days for both of them. Davies-Uniacke, career high 19 contested disposals. Zurhaar, career high 24 disposals. So career performances from both of them. I think both can get fitter. Absolutely, I do. Davies-Uniacke often starts games exceptionally well and then drifts out. So I think he's got a lot of work to do on his tank. Not dissimilar to Christian Petrarca. I'd be having a phone call with him if I was Luke and finding out what he's done to be one of the best players in the competition, because he can be that.
Same manager
absolutely,
as well.
Absolutely, no doubt he's got the attributes to do what Christian Petrarca is doing. And this guy we just love to watch. I mean, this was a big goal late against the Breeze when it was a tough scoring end to score from. So he's hard at it. He's hungry. He's a good pressure player. He's a player that you can build your whole side around. So those two were the match winners today, and they're going to have big careers. North fans should be excited.
So that goal there from Zurhaar put the Roos 3 goals up. Then Gold Coast peppered. They had 13 inside 50s in the last 5 minutes of the game. Hugh Greenwood kicks a goal. You think maybe Gold Coast can get a run on. As you said, they're kicking with the wind at this stage. They have the last 6 scoring shots of the game, all behinds.
Yeah, it was the loser, the fallout for the loser was going to be significant. So North Melbourne are good enough in the end to hang on through some inaccuracy. We're going to be speaking a lot once again about Gold Coast. We would have been doing the same. North Melbourne, they're probably the two worst teams in the competition. So the loser, there was big ramifications for it. So for David Noble's group to be able to hang on, to get some really good performances from some young players that we spoke about, is a massive learning one for them. And that mark there from Walker was huge in the end, a game saver.
Gold Coast now, 6 of their last 7 games they've lost. They just can't have the same situation fall away like they have the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is. I feel like we speak about them every week. Neil Craig's in the rooms there. They've got experienced people around. Stewie Dew. It appears as though the club will back in Stewie Dew again, but he's got to be supported by a more experienced coaching group, I would think, and I reckon that would be their number one priority.
To the ladder we go next, Kane. The Melbourne Footy Club sitting pretty before the Dogs play tomorrow. Port has jumped Geelong into 4th.
Yep, they have. There it is. And the top 8's getting interesting. The bottom half of that, in particular with Sydney, whose draws tough, and Richmond, if they play like they did, they'll fall out pretty comfortably. The Fremantle make it interesting. And gee, that draw against North hurts the Giants, but they're in some good form. And I wouldn't write the Bombers off just yet either.
And Collingwood sitting 4th last. That means the Giants have got the 4th pick as it sits right now in the NAB AFL draft. To the rest of the round, as you said, the Giants, they can move into the top 8 if they beat Hawthorn tomorrow. That is a big game, West Coast and the Dogs at Optus Stadium.
Yeah, and the biggest one of the round, I think, for differing reasons, is the Carlton-Adelaide game. I mean, the fallout for the Blues, if they drop this one to Adelaide, will be massive, and we'll be speaking about them a lot on Monday if that's the case. Hopefully, and you would think at home at Marvel, with some players coming back in, they'll be good enough to win.
To add one more thing, the fixture for next week, round 16, was released today. Gold Coast getting a Thursday night game because of the lack of options with the quick turnaround.
Ouch.
Geelong Essendon on Friday night will be a ripper.
Yeah, hopefully we get a better Friday night game than what we got last week, and then we're seeing a bit of fixture chaos really. That Melbourne and the Giants game will be at the MCG. Crows and Brisbane confirmed Adelaide Oval. Hawthorn and Port at Marvel. Fremantle and Carlton in Perth.
Fremantle and Carlton's a big game for the Dockers, as is Sydney and West Coast. That game, probably an 8-point game early on. GMHBA Stadium. We know West Coast record down there, and Sydney have won 3 of their last 4 games at the venue. That's pretty big for them.
That's their home game.
It is, and they've got to do that to keep their spot in the top 8. Kane, thanks for that. I'll see you next week.
Go on, mate.